So there's a hidden reality behind fat loss injections that no one's talking about, and it's going to make people feel even worse, even after they've lost the fat.
So there's like a camp of people that do accessories, but there's also a camp of people that do high frequency, high specificity. So then they're losing out on even more gains because of...
Like, what world are we living in where grown men are afraid to touch receipts because they think it's going to tank their testosterone? What's really tanking testosterone is something far more obvious and far more easier to fix once you know how. All you need to do is... Hey guys, it's Dan.
And Jordan, I'll add to it as well. I'm not going to introduce me, but I'll introduce myself.
No,
I'm Dan and Jordan.
I was pointing you to kind of get you
involved.
into it. Yeah.
Sorry, mate. Yeah, I'm Jordan. This is Dan.
Yeah, we'll start with that. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the weird and wacky trend that is going on social media now about certain chemicals castrating men. We'll get onto that in a bit.
Okay, interesting.
We're going to talk about accessories in powerlifting,
yep,
and some other bits and bobs. So let's dive into it. Did you hear about that? A 24-year-old as well from Turkey. You didn't hear about him? He'd passed away from an eating competition. Like massively obese kid, 24 years old.
Fuck.
Just passed away. They were doing like this challenge, I think. I think it was online. It was on like this, like a social media platform, and he was known for like eating loads of food. I can't remember how much he packed away. But yeah, he passed away.
What killed him?
Because he was so overweight, so obese.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So it's just health rather than the actual eating challenge.
Health, yeah. I was reading the article and it was saying that he had to miss his own mother's funeral because he couldn't leave his house because he was so overweight.
Oh my God.
Like,
fucked,
I know.
Isn't it?
And people like celebrating him, like, you know, eating these challenges, people egging him
like
on.
Like an athlete.
Yeah. It's fucked up, isn't it?
Have you, do you ever watch Beard Meets Food?
No, I've heard you talk about this guy though.
Oh, he's talking about eating challenges. I don't know what it is and why it sucks me in. And I don't go out of my way to watch them. But if I'm at home and I go like YouTube app on my telly, he comes up as a suggestion, and I find it so hard to just flick past him. Just like this, like he just literally travels the world doing these eating challenges. Wow. And he's a really cool guy, and his branding is really cool for his eating challenges. And he always completes them, so it's like you know the outcome. He's gonna get a plate of food and eat it, and then it ends like. So it's really like monotonous, but it's so fucking like. I'm like, how? Like he did like pizza the other day, and it was like relentless. And he just wins like all these challenges.
Is he overweight?
No, he's in good nick. He's got quite big arms.
Do you remember that guy, Man vs. Food? Like he was a little bit overweight at one point, but then he lost a lot of weight.
Yeah.
It's weird, isn't it? How you can pack up so much weight.
I don't understand the eating challenges, but they're crazy. They're like pigs when they eat as well.
Yeah.
So it's not like he's not there with like a knife and fork. It's like clumps of food and water, Coke, and they're like sort of like making it like a liquid and just swallowing it.
Fucking mental. Yeah. What a sport.
I know.
What a sport. Touching on like the obesity thing, we lost that podcast to me where we talked about Ozempec.
Yes.
And I think it's just such an interesting topic to talk about.
Yeah, it was quite like it was flicking around on social media a lot when we spoke about it, which is why we were speaking about it. I haven't seen too much of it now, but yeah, I haven't given it much thought from since. But has your opinion changed on it?
No, I think what we talked about last time, I've still got that belief where I think that it's a good tool. Mm-hmm. Like it's as with any drug, if it can take people out of pain, because I think a lot of people who are obese, they're not waking up and going, oh, I want to be obese, right? Yeah. There's something in them that what we talked about in the other podcast where they potentially have, or there's some research that suggests people who are obese have more, I think it's either ghrelin or leptin, so stronger hunger signals when they eventually get it, which gets them to eat more. There's some people who would maybe just I don't know whether it's do you get blinded maybe? Do you kind of wake up and then you've all of a sudden like years and years of eating in a calorie surplus and not moving about, and then you wake up one day and you think, oh fucking hell, surely that doesn't happen, right? Surely you know when you're putting on weight, because I can feel it straight away. If I've put on 3 or 4 kilos over Christmas, I'm like, oh, I can feel that a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe they haven't got that. I don't know. I don't know. It's
like
hard.
A lot of people use it as like a coping mechanism, don't they? Like,
yes.
Like sadness, they eat, or if they're stressed, they eat. It's like a comfort. People say, oh, it's comfort food and stuff like that. So I think people get like so bogged down emotionally that it'll just be a habit. It'll just be a reaction, and they're just sort of like an unconscious reaction. But then the consequence to it is obesity and healthiness. And like when you talk about that, it just reminded me. I read like Jimmy Carr's book, and it's like a self-help book. But he differentiates like sadness and depression, and like sadness is just like everyone will experience sadness. It's just a natural human emotion. But depression is an actual chemical imbalance in the brain that you can't just sort of like make yourself happy. Like there needs some sort of intervention. And he talks about like medicating like clinical depression, but people are medicating sadness instead of depression. So like there's just this like real like sort of elaborate like chat on that. And I think when you're talking about it then with what's the drug called again?
Ozempic. There's quite a few, but I think the main one is Ozempic.
Yeah, let's go Ozempic. When you talk about that, it's almost like, oh, I can actually give people like the equivalent of what they require with depression. It gives them the kickstart, you know, it gives them that sort of like maybe changing signal, that little boost. But I think what we discussed then is like that in itself, in isolation, is probably not the best thing.
No.
It requires like layers. And then one of the layers would be like education around like, you know, diet, portion control, and like foods to sort of, you know, be encouraged and shy away from. But also when you're taking a drug like that and there's so much, you know, catabolism with their body just losing all these like cells, loads of like fat cells, you will lose muscle cells as well.
Yeah.
So you need to, I think it should be a requirement that if you do have it like through the NHS or on prescription, or even just choose to buy and take it, you should link it with as a requirement with strength training.
I agree.
Because that way then your body's not going to like degrade. You're not going to just lose a huge amount of weight, or even however much, you know, weight you're going to lose. You're not going to lose that and then be sort of like in pain or fragile as a consequence to it. You're going to then build some like strength and resilience in your body. You don't have to be a fucking gym goer, but in conjunction with strength training will just mean that the body will be in a better body composition for their mental health, to be like, oh yeah, I look better. But also it'll be a healthier body. You know?
And again, going back to what you said then about, I think, that 100% it should be a requirement. And again, that's like addressing the root cause, and going back to what you said, like what you said about Jimmy Carr, that book, it's like, okay, well, I've never been depressed. I think I've been on the cusp, but I think there's a line where you don't just go to bed one night and then you wake up depressed. I think it's like there's an accumulation of stuff that gets you to that point. And then it's like going, okay, well, what has taken that person to that point? And then it's trying to like addressing the root cause. And it's the same with obesity. It's like when you look at someone, so I'm reading a good book at the moment called Psycho-Cybernetics, and it's about a guy who was a plastic surgeon, and he would get people coming into his surgery with like big ears, and then they thought they were disgusting, and they thought they were ugly. The other people would come in with like a bridge on their nose or whatever. And a lot of these people, when they had the surgery, they'd leave and they'd go, oh yeah, I feel better. But then they'd come back, or they'd speak to them a few weeks after, and they still weren't happy. So he came to this conclusion that even if you fix someone what they think is wrong with them, or what they think is making them unhappy, there's usually a deeper issue. And I think with obesity, especially with Ozempic, some people are going to get themselves into a bit of shit because they're going to lose the weight, but then they'll lose the weight and then they'll still be unhappy. And then it's like, well, okay, well, so what is the root cause of your unhappiness? And I think that's something that doesn't get talked about enough. Plus as well, I think with Ozempic, like, yeah, it's cool, we've got this drug that's helping people lose weight, but we spoke in the podcast where we talked about this topic, where I firmly believe that when someone goes on a weight loss or a muscle gaining or a strength gaining journey, there's wisdom in that feeling of doing the hard thing and getting the outcome that you're working hard to get. And I think with Ozempic, yeah, okay, maybe you have to, you know, I think what it actually does is that it numbs the it numbs the hunger in your stomach or whatever it is, or your brain, nervous system, whatever. But if you're not then working hard towards it, you're not getting that post training endorphin. You're not getting those feelings. So I think people are going to lose the weight but still feel shit. I think that's something that doesn't get talked about enough, and
I agree.
Just people need to be wary of that. I think
there's probably been a lot of like investment and time put into the drug itself, and not into the sort of psychology to sort of coupled with dosing it out to people, you know. There's interesting that one more thing, slightly off topic. I coached a dermatologist, and she was talking about like people like getting plastic surgery and then not feeling happy, not finding the root cause. And she told me this really interesting story. People with like really bad psoriasis, to the point where it's like really bad.
That's the red patches,
red
right?
patches, yeah. And they're like flakes and stuff, and they can like, you can sit down here and they'll just like leave like their skin everywhere, basically their skin, and it's like very like it's just very like aggressive on their body. It just looks nasty. She said that there's like injections and stuff that they can prescribe to those people, and then they can get like really cleared up. They would have had this like through like long periods of their lives. So then they get used to people moving away from them and avoiding them and stuff like that. And then she said they would give them these injections or treat it, and then their skin would look way, way, way better. And then they'd be on public transport and they're used to people being away from them, but now people like sit next to them and they haven't psychologically like been exposed to that. They're used to people staying away, and then they get really uncomfortable because people are getting really close, and it like unlocks like this really strange like social like
That's weird.
well, the word is like just like become socially like awkward and uncomfortable because they're in an environment now where they're like, these people are really, really close.
Yeah.
How mad is that?
Yeah.
It's like you solve like the biggest problem that they have, this like huge insecurity that they have. And it just unlocks this other one, you know?
That's what
like humans are mental.
We are mental. Like that thing, isn't it? It's like if you solve a new problem, that thing that you've solved the problem with comes with another problem.
Yeah.
So it's true for everything.
Yeah.
And yeah, going back to what you said there about we've spoken so many times before about like the reason why people can't change or struggle to change, and it's like they've built that identity. So going back with that person with what condition? Psoriasis. They've almost built that identity around them. With, I have this. And then it's like, oh, people treat me in a certain way. And it's the same with people who have gained weight or struggle to gain weight. They have people being like, oh, don't worry, you're okay, you know, accept your body as it is. And they kind of get that, I guess, what would you call it? Positive reaffirming, and then they start losing the weight and people start treating them differently, and it's like, well, now I'm not getting the attention that I used to get. It's like, oh, do I want to lose this weight because I'm losing a part of me that I'm so used to? It's like you said, human psychology is berserk. It's fucked. It is. We are weird animals.
It's strange.
Really, really weird animals.
So let's segue that then. So if people lose loads of weight and they have all these like changes in their body, it can affect hormones. And you wanted to talk about changes in hormones and external things that can affect testosterone. And you sort of mentioned it to me before we came on here. And I was like, oh, I didn't even know that existed. So this is going to be new for me as well. So
that's a great segue, by the way. You should be proud of that one. But it's just, we've spoken about it before in so many episodes where it's like people mentally masturbate over the 1%, right? Haven't we? And it's so common these days where, so cut long story short, I was on social media a few nights ago, and I've seen these things lurking so many times now that I thought, oh, this would be so interesting to talk about on the podcast. But there's a lot of stuff going around at the moment, like don't drink tap water, because when women wee into the water, when the filtration system, and if the women are on the pill, the filtration system can't get rid of the pill and the ingredients in there. Is estrogenic, which is another fancy word for kills testosterone. Yeah. And if you drink that, then that's why testosterone numbers are reducing in men. There's another thing. There's a chemical in receipts. So they're saying that because the premise is male testosterone levels are declining. Yeah. Fact. Yeah. Absolute fact. I think it's dropped something like, I think back in the 1980s or the 70s, it was the average was like 700 nanograms per deciliter. Now it's down at like the average is between 300 and 400. So it's dropped considerably. It's quite a big drop. But people are now trying to figure out why this is happening. So the theory is there's birth control in our water. The theory is that when we touch receipts, that some kind of plastic goes into our body.
A receipt, like a shopping receipt.
A shopping receipt, yeah. So there's all, and that's just two. I'm trying to think of the other one. It'll come to me in a bit. But there's all of these things that people are trying to latch onto now, why testosterone is declining. And it goes back to that 1% thing. Like, okay, there might be some evidence that I know there are certain plastics that can have an estrogenic effect on testosterone.
And and women trying to conceive as well, they should like avoid plastic.
Yeah,
like heating up food in plastic.
Yeah, and that can happen to men as well. Yeah, so you should reheat in glass containers rather than plastic. And I actually do that because I don't think reheating plastic is good for us. I drink out of, well, got it here, a steel water bottle.
Yeah, I use plastic.
If it's BPA free, that's fine.
It is, and I just get testosterone.
There we are. There's a solution to all this. But it comes back to that thing where people are latching onto these things now, and it's like, okay, but you're doing all of these things. Okay, you're buying a filtration system for your house. You're avoiding plastics, you're not touching receipts, but you're 35% body fat, you're always stressed, you catastrophize over everything, your sleep is terrible. Mate, sort those fucking things out first before you start majoring in the minors. And that's, I think, the society that we're living in now. People looking for these 1%.
Yeah.
Listen to Joe Rogan, hearing him talk about athletic greens and going, oh, I should fucking spend £100 on athletic greens because it's going to get my minerals and vitamins in. Just eat broccoli with your fucking dinner. It's like they watch Chris Williamson podcast and he's got like these sachets, you know, it's like hydration sachets, and it's like sachets, even not sachets. It's like people are like going, yeah, no, this can make you concentrate more, and people are like, yeah, I need that. No, just sleep a little bit better, mate, you know, and just manage your stress a bit better. People are then going on to, you know, new tonic, the drink that James Smith and that Chris Williamson have created to focus better, and it's like, no, again, you're missing the forest for the trees here. You're latching on for these 1%, and it pisses me off. It really pisses me off. If you've got those things in order, though, like your healthy level of body fat, you eat well, you train hard, you get outside, you get your sunlight, you get your vitamins in, your minerals, okay, then look to the 1%. Get your house in order first before looking at external factors that will give you 1%. Have you noticed that society
is literally like that with everything that I'm now at? Like we spoke about before, like the Amazon Prime. I love Amazon Prime mindset, you know? It's just like, oh, I just can't be asked to do that. But if I take this drink, I'll be absolutely fine. And it's just like, are you fucking delusional? Like, you know, everybody knows deep down that that's like a load of bollocks, you know? But yeah, I feel like that's almost the hardest sell to people now is like the hard work, you know? It's like prioritizing your sleep is quite hard. Like,
yes. Yeah,
it can be quite hard, especially if you're like really busy. You have got like, you know, stress on. You've got a newborn that doesn't sleep very well. Like, it's
I think
hard.
that's an anomaly, though, right? If you've got a newborn, you have to take it on the chin.
Yeah, you definitely do.
Yeah.
And
so take the newborn
Max has been
aside.
sleeping shit, so it's like it's super annoying. But like, yeah, like there's like, and it can get really tough. But like, it doesn't then. I think the mindset shouldn't then shift to like, how do I fix it with other things? It's like, how do I fix this thing? Like, you know, Maxon's not sleeping well isn't uncontrollable. You know, you can put that to one bed. But if someone's just like struggling to fall asleep and then they're like on their phone just before bed, it's like, you know, don't be on your phone before bed ordering nootropics.
Yeah.
Like, just get off your phone before bed, you know, get some blackout blinds, you know, and
cut caffeine a few hours, you know, earlier than what you're currently doing.
let's try and problem solve like the root cause, like you said, like with the sleep, rather than trying to problem solve by buying something that you think is gonna fix it. And it's the same with training. Like, that's why people jump around on their training programs. They're like, I'm not making gains quick enough. I need the next program. I'm not making gains as quickly as I thought with this coach. I need another coach. Like, you know, jumping around, trying to find something that's going to be really quick. And then they're like, yeah, fuck yeah, this is it. And then they're stalls and they're like, right, I've adapted to this now. I need to go on to something else and buy something else and move on to something else. It's just like like the human psychology around that is fucking amazing, you know. If someone's like that with coaching, it's like the whole point of us as a coach is to retain clients, obviously for monetary purposes, but also because we know this, like we know that people like to do that. So along the journey of coaching, as like, if you're a coach out there, it's like you got to sell to them all the time that they're doing the right thing and reaffirm that what they're doing is like realistic progress and what they're doing like is the best thing for them. And as like coaches need to sort of show proof of concept and continually sell our product, not just for like retention purposes, but for like the best interest of them. Because then if they fuck off and you know your product is the best for them, then they're losing out. And like, we got into coaching because we wanted to help people, right? And we want to make sure that our expertise is going into these people and actually problem solving their issues. And we know that we can do that. So it's up to us to be able to tell them that what they're doing is perfectly normal, it's perfect timing, it's perfect progress timing, everything's on the right tracks.
It's true.
And it's like one guy left here the other day and I was gutted because what he said, in my opinion, was wrong. And I was like, try to use all of like the evidence that I had.
What did he say?
I don't want to go too much into it, but basically he was leaving because he wanted group training, but he tried group training before and it wasn't successful. And the reasons that he gave, we had the solutions for in a one-to-one setting. And he just wanted to try something new. But the things he wanted to try, like I knew wouldn't suit him and wouldn't have the longevity.
And if he's tried it before as well.
Yeah, exactly. And it was the same sort of concept. And the reasons he gave before were, like, he did it twice before. So it was like the reasons he gave before, his like happened more than once. And he's going back to it for like a third time. And it was like, there's a solution here. And this is what I'm going to give you as like a part of that solution. And I knew it was the best thing for him. Due to some other things as well, like personal things that he was going through, and like I could speak really closely to that and relate to that. But then he just still chose to leave, and it's like, yeah, fine, like we're here and stuff. But like that's like gutting, because it's like I know we can help in that instance, you know.
Yeah, and I think you were bang on there. Sometimes you have, and it feels quite dirty sometimes, where you're trying to like get a client to understand that no, you have got their best interest at heart. But it's so hard sometimes to come across like it, because they think sometimes in their head they're like, he just wants my money, he just wants me to stay a bit longer, you know. And it's like, no, like I actually, because the way I see it, right, and I tell my clients all the time is, if I do a good job for you, then what are you going to do? Well, you're probably going to tell your friends about me. That means that those friends then are probably going to inquire with me, and I'm going to get them as a client. So when I tell my clients like this, they're always like, oh yeah, that makes sense. You know, like he is here for me, to get me results. That's ultimately why he got in this game.
Yeah.
But the sad reality is that there are some coaches out there who I think their attention to detail is crap. They care, but they don't care enough to provide a good enough service. So then when a client goes to them first, because generally those crappier coaches are cheaper, so they'll price shop. They'll talk to a few coaches, and they'll go for the cheapest one, because they think all trainers are created equal. And it's like, well, no, all plumbers aren't created equal. You can get a plumber to come over your house and he'll fucking ruin your bathroom, you know, or your kitchen by doing the wrong thing, because he's a cowboy. Then you can get a really good plumber in. Attention to detail is amazing. There's no mess after it. Invoices are sent, and you know, look professional. Even coming in, taking his shoes off before he comes into your house. Like those little things just make a service a lot better. And I think what you've got here at Zero, you can see that it's premium. That's why you are £70 rather than £30. You know?
Like I'm so confident that I always say to people, like, we're a category of one. Like we do set the standard with our coaching systems. We do set the standard with our equipment, and I'm super proud of the product we offer. We get results with literally all of our clients. And if someone doesn't get coached with us and they just pay for a gym membership, they fit into our community, and we help them. We're not just like, oh yeah, you don't get coached by us, so you just do your own thing. No, we're like, okay, what can we do to provide a better service for people that don't get coached by us? Is like, we can help spot them, we can help motivate them, we can help encourage them, we can pay an interest in their plans and be invested in their plans, so they feel backed by the community. It's like just literally what we do and what we set up here is amazing.
Yeah, no, it's good. And going back to that thing about people who buy stuff, I read a really interesting post from, you know, the Alan guy.
Yeah.
So there's a really interesting chap on Facebook. He's a marketer, a really interesting marketer, and he literally did a post yesterday about people who they get dopamine from buying the thing and feeling like they're doing the right thing by buying it, but will never. So if there's a course, for example, they'll buy the course, but then will never actually use the course, not even open the course, because they're getting dopamine, whatever, from just the buying process. How interesting is that?
Give me some of these people. Where do I market to these people? So I'll buy a premium coaching. I'm a premium member at Zero, but I'm never going to do that.
Crazy though, isn't it?
Yeah, that's wild.
Human psyche is insane.
Yeah.
So yeah, how did that conversation segue to that?
I am actually.
Yeah, that was mental how that went from chemical castrating tap water to fucking people buying stuff from dopamine. Interesting. Accessories in powerlifting.
Very important.
Yes. So let's unpack this for the viewers who are maybe from my niche who don't understand what accessories are. Do you want to give us a third grade the introduction
I'll break it down.
on what
So
accessories
I'll
are?
talk through the context of my system and the way I coach it. So we have the main movements. I do powerlifting. I'm the powerlifting coach, the powerlifting guy. That's my bias. So when I say the main movements, I'm talking like squat, bench press, deadlift. Those are like the main movements. So that's like my top tier of exercises. Underneath of that, then will be variations of those main lifts. So like if we use squat, for example, pause squat, tempo squat, banded squat, box squat, whatever squat variation you want to do, and that sort of like variation is like a variation of the main lift to like modulate the intensity so you can work on some component of the main lift that you require work at. So if you've got, let's go bench press. So you bench press, you do the main lift, and you've got like your shoulders elevate every time you press off the chest, and then you fail halfway up as a result of you losing that position. So the modulation of intensity basically reduces the overall intensity, so the overall weight on the bar, but then you add a constraint like a tempo, so then it creates a relative same intensity, and then that means that you can focus on the thing that you're missing, right?
So you're basically reducing, so you're doing your main lift, and then in the accessory, you're reducing the weight, but then you're slowing the bar down so you can focus on that upper back.
Exactly. So you can focus on technical breakdown, right? So they're like variations of the main lift. And then the next tier down from that, in my system, then we'll just like remove the subsystem principle and then apply it directly into an exercise. So if we come back to a squat, the best one for me there is like a leg press, which basically removes the concept of the hips. So the hip concept or principle is hip torque. Maintaining hip torque is like, how can I train that relevant to the squat? So it's like, okay, I need to have the same squat stance, the same toe angle, the same movement pattern, so the range is key.
Same footwear as well?
Yeah, same footwear. You can be super, super specific with it. If we can get all of those things, so basically from the hips down, it's the same as the squat, then it needs to be loadable. So the load is going to be relevant, because if you were then to be like, oh, I can just do a goblet squat. It's just like, yeah, but how much are you going to goblet squat? You're trying to squat 500 pounds, 227 kilos, you're probably going to goblet squat like 50 kilos, you know? It's like so far removed, you're probably not going to stress the hips enough. Whereas you can leg press 300 kilos, you know? Okay. So then there's like that loadable aspect of it. And then you can focus on things then that's going to have, you know, coaching relevance to the main lift. It's going to have a technical relevance, so you can then engage your hips in a way that you can help fix your squat. So then you can do that on leg press, you can do that on a pendulum, you can do that on a squat machine, belt squat, hack squat. All of those machines can then bring that principle from the squat and apply it into a machine. So then there's another layer. That's the next level of like accessories. From there, then you can start doing other things. You can start doing split squats. You can start doing lunges. You can start doing dumbbell RDLs. All of those things will train the muscles of the legs and hips, which is, you know, the muscles that are going to be used in the squat. And then you can have nuance within those exercises that are going to strengthen the subsystems, help strengthen positions more generally. So then you can scale it back up specifically into the main lift. And then it scales down even further then. So they're like RDLs, split squats, lunges, are like multiple joints are involved. And then you can go singular joint, like a leg extension, just knee, hamstring curl. Those things then are single joint movements, more isolation, more general, more about like building the muscles responsible for moving the load. And then, yeah, that's pretty much how we sort of scale things down in a really quick, simple, grossly oversimplified way. That's pretty much like the tier of exercises that we look at. Okay. But in terms of like the purpose that they serve within like exercise in sort of programming, the exercises that you decide to use are like, going to like bolster volume, help like, you know, strengthen weak points, is going to be really, really good for just like overall like muscular balance, train different planes. There's like loads of like reasons why you should include them.
There's I think we can go deeper with this, because I can use myself as an example here. So I remember when I first came down to here, I was like, Jordan, I want to squat 200k. I had a date in mind. I can't remember. I think it was 7 months or something. You were like, cool, we can get you to do that. I was like, oh, never been told that before, because my max, I think, ever was 170 kg. So I was like, fucking hell, 30 kg I'm going to have to try and put on here in 7 months. You were like, no, we'll do it. And I remember I was training here and you came up to me and you said, look, your hips are opening too far. I was like, what the fuck is this guy on about? You're like, no, look at your hips. So we filmed my squat from the front. We looked at it and you said, look at how much your knees are collapsing outwards. And I was like, I've never noticed that before. And then you said, look, here's some of my clients who I coach. Look at their knees in comparison to yours. Look at my squat. Look at where my knees are in comparison to yours. And I could see that my knees were far removed, like a frog, in comparison to they should have been a little bit narrower, not driving my knees and opening my hips up as much as I was. So you were like, what's happening is your adductors aren't strong enough at the moment, so that's why they're opening. You're losing control in and around your hips. So I was like, okay, how do I fix that? You were like, well, come to the leg press with me. Put your stance a little bit narrower and a little bit lower down than what you usually do. Put your feet a little bit lower down the way you usually do, and go through that. And I remember, I was like, do you remember? I was like, I physically can't bring my knees in any closer, and I feel like my knees just want to go out. And you were like, well, this is why we're doing this. So you were like, reduce the load a little bit, just go through that, and just do that every time before you squat. And I remember as time went on, I was able to get my knees a little bit closer. My knees weren't buckling out as much. I had more control through my hips. And you were like, this is it. Like, this is why we're doing this. So then when you do go over to squat, everything is how it should be. And then I ended up squatting 207.5 kg.
Sick.
37.5 kg added just by that little tweak to my...
It's just to give people like an insight to that. Because there's a lot of people that talk about like, knees in isn't a bad thing, or knees out. Well, I think the industry is so conditioned to knees out. They're like, the more knees out is better. I think that's how people genuinely see it. Whereas the way I see it, it's just like, okay, any sort of movement in or out downstream from the hip is a byproduct of something that's going on at the hip. If we look at the knee is like a hinge joint. It goes forward and back. There's obviously a rotational moment in it, but let's keep it simple. So if the foot is going to be overly like pronated and the knee is then going to track in, it's like, okay, that's adduction, or it could be valgus if there's rotation at the tib and the fib. Again, let's keep it simple. But like that movement there is torque escaping the system from the hip. It's like, okay, we need to maintain torque to allow for the muscles of the legs and hips to do their job, right?
Torque being
rotational force.
Okay.
It's like an isometric at the hip to stabilize the hip joint.
Okay.
So we're basically got our foot on the floor, and then we're trying to create torque against the foot being on the floor. That rotational force creates an isometric, which is like a co-contraction, which means that hip then is going to be more stable, or hip and pelvis more stable, right? So if we can identify that as like a principle, and any movement inward or any movement outward is a byproduct of like a loss of torque, we can understand, okay, what do we need to do to strengthen that position or maintain torque in order for power transfer to be more efficient, right? And in your case of you going out, it's more of a rare sort of breakdown. Most people's knees cave in when they squat. But you pushing out all the time meant that you lost internal rotation control at the hip. So it's like internal rotation control, which is basically to hold your knee more, quote unquote, inwards to be more stable, and adduction, right? So it's like, okay, he's lost the either control or range at that point. So by putting it on a leg press, which is my favorite way to fix it, meant that I put you closer than your squat stance, your toes more forward. So I'm biasing adduction via your stance coming in. I'm biasing more internal rotation by straightening your toes up. So I'm putting you in like a compromised position, that basically the qualities that you're losing in your squat, and then isolating it on a leg press, trying to make you move through a relevant range, so full depth as we need on a squat. And then your knees are like this, trembling, because your body can't control that position because it's not being exposed to that position. You know, the bilateral movement as well in that range is really fucking hard to control when you haven't accessed it for a while.
And trying to keep the feet straight as well.
100%. Your toes are just going to want to spin out because your body's going to want to like lose torque and then externally rotate. Exactly.
Yeah.
So then we fight to hold that position, use weight that you can control right now, and then build strength and control over time in that. And then providing that you can do that in an isolated setting like a leg press, and then cue it effectively in the main lift, the two start to talk to each other, and that's when you get tangible improvements in controlling the hips. And then there's other things you can do then in more isolated settings that bias more, like adduction, internal rotation, to get more general qualities. And like that level of understanding in controlling at the hip will mean that every decision you make as a coach will inform you on how you're going to sort of address certain exercises, how you're going to load it, and how it's going to then look, and then over time what sort of results you're going to get.
That's so like awesome to hear, and I hope people who watch this think there's so much value in coaching, because we often talk about we're all the same animal doing the same things, and I think that's like fact. But I think there's these nuances and these slight differences where you can look at someone out there and their knees are going out. You can look at another person and their knees are coming in. That is where coaching then comes into play. It's like, we're all the same animal doing the same thing, but these small little changes, they need addressing. And it's like, okay, how do I address that as a coach? Some coaches do not know how to address that. You can see, like, I know some, or seen some power lifters who I know who are getting coached by other people, knees are collapsing in, you know? And it's like, you see that all of the time. And it's like, why isn't this coach correcting that? And we've talked about it in previous podcasts before. Does that coach know how to correct it? It's the same with people who, skinny fat guys who come to me. I've worked with PTs before, I've worked with coaches before. I cannot put on muscle. And it's like, what? Like, so how is that possible? Like, you are a human being biologically. If you do the right things, you're going to put on muscle. 100%. So does this coach even know how to build muscle? Or is he just copying a program that he's seeing by online, 5x5 strong lifts, shoving it into an Excel spreadsheet so it looks personalized? But then you don't actually, you're not doing the right things to get that program to essentially work. I think some people just don't know how to do it.
100%. And I'm very much like we've said loads, like, we are the same animal doing the same thing, and then we're trying to apply the biomechanical similarity from the humans. Like, I used the shoulder analogy last week. We have the same hips as well. The individual difference is someone's hip socket can be more like shallow or more deep. Like, there can be individual with it, but it's a ball and socket joint like every other fucking hip. Unless you've had a fucking hip replacement and it's fused and whatnot, that's like the sort of like 0.5%, right? But your hip is the same as my hip, right? So when we're saying the principle of torque, then that principle is applied to everyone. The individual difference will be the breakdown of the control of the hip, but the principle is exactly the same from person to person to person to person. So how you fix it is the same from person to person to person. The individual difference is, one, the severity of the breakdown, which doesn't fucking change anything. If your knees come in a tiny bit or they come in fucking loads, it's the exact same breakdown at different levels. How you fix it is exactly the same. And you should always be striving towards the gold standard, which is zero movement in. That's not to say you reduce all the load until it's absolutely perfect. It just means that the information that you give the person or the exercises you give the person is always towards that gold standard. And I think people love the individual card and they get really jarred to hear that, like, no, you just do this, you just do the same thing. If I have two people, right? So listen, this is fucking sick, right? So Sandra and Bex, they're both doing Welsh champs.
So Sandra is a coach at Zero. I always laugh when I listen to these podcasts back, because we say these people's names.
And
the viewers,
how the fuck do you not know them?
And probably the viewers like, who the fuck are these people?
It doesn't matter anyway, right? So Sandra works at Zero and Bex is my client. The trains at Zero, right? So they both get coached by me. They're both doing the same comp. They're both in the same weight class, so their body shape is similar, so they're of the same archetype, and they're both trying to get better at squat, bench, deadlift, right? So it's like, okay, how much difference has their program got? Fuck all difference, right? The individual difference is like accessory execution, but the accessories are very, very similar. The difference is in volumes that they can handle, and there's some small detail changes in sort of like top set, back downs, and additional sets due to some psychological factors. So like, I'm considering the individual sprinkling in there, but they're the same weight class, they're the same archetype, they're doing the same competition, so they're peaking at the same time, so their programs look fucking very, very, very similar, and people get so jarred by that. And it's like, if I was to make it so much different, I'd have such an inconsistent system, because there'd be so many moving parts. How the fuck am I going to know what's working or not? Whereas I know my system works, I know what exercises I need to put in to fix their individual breakdowns, I know how they respond because they're a fucking human. And then I apply those principles. And now, like, Bex is going to break the deadlift record. I'll call that now. Sandra will break the squat record, and they're both on track for all-time PBs. Amazing. You know, so it's like, although they're like, they could literally do a squat session and almost follow each other around the gym identically. And then other coaches will bash me on that because they're like, oh, you copied and pasted it. It's like, no, I've used the template, I've used the skeleton of my program and applied the individual flair to that skeleton. They're not doing the exact same thing because they have different notes and cues and individual elements to a program that I know is going to work for them. And the proof is in the pudding. Who gives a fuck anyway if they're doing the exact same thing? If they're both getting stronger, I'm pretty sure that's what they pay me for.
Exactly.
Bex was like, I want to break the deadlift record. I was like, I'll get you to break the deadlift record. So if I said sit on the bike for an hour and cycle, if it meant to break the deadlift record, I'm sure she would do it.
Probably would, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You pay for the results. You know, skinny fat guys want to not be skinny fat. They want to be jacked and look good. And that's what they're paying for, you know.
Exactly.
They'll do as you say.
Yeah.
You know, they're not like, oh, I want to do fucking. I'm not even going to use that example. Let's move on. That was going to be way too offensive to say.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Just going back to that, I think people, it's like special snowflake mentality, isn't it? People have been told by their parents that they're special, and we said it last week. You were like, you don't get to decide what you do or don't respond to.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think there's so much wisdom in that, and it goes back to that thing where a skinny fat man will come to me and say, calorie tracking doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
Because I've tried it before. It's like, no. Calorie track it. So you probably weren't in a calorie deficit then.
Yeah.
You didn't do it for long enough, or there was something wrong with the way that you were doing it, right?
Yeah.
And it's like calorie deficit will work for every healthy human being in the world. And you saying that you can't do it is mental.
Yeah.
Because it will work for everyone.
Sure.
Question. Do you want to explore anything else about that?
No, let's wrap up with the last question.
Yeah, cool. So
I'm starving.
Last question of today is, what misconception do people have about you?
Probably less so now, but that I'm really unapproachable and scary. Yeah, I used to have that quite a lot. People used to be like, "Oh yeah, Jordan's really, really scary," and then they'd like sort of get to know me or be introduced to me, and then they'd be like, "Oh, I thought you were really scary when I first met you, but now you're not scary at all." So I think people feel like I'm obviously way more approachable now because I sort of can't be in the gym being unapproachable or own this and being unapproachable. But yeah, that was like the biggest misconception. Is like if I was training in like another gym and I was training, people would be like, "Oh, Jordan's really fucking scary." But I think it's just because I'm tattooed and whatnot. You know, it's just like social stereotypes. People immediately fall into that.
Mm-hmm. Judge.
Yeah.
I don't think it's anything to do with you. It's how they perceive you. So that's on them, 100%. Which has been driven by society. People who have got tattoos are fucking thugs.
Yeah.
You know?
And I've done, like, honestly, right, if there's, so a few weeks ago, if Saf listens to this, or she definitely is not, but I'll show her this part of it.
Well, by the way, it's on Spotify now, so the girls will probably listen to it. Yeah.
So Saf went into, I had kilo, I was outside Tesco in home, and Saf went in to get some things, and then like an old lady came out, and you could see her looking for a bag, and literally I will go out of my way to be like, I'm going to help you solve this little problem that you have. So I was just like, "Oh, do you want a hand with anything?" And she was just like, "Oh, no, it's okay." And I was just like, "You looking for your keys?" And I was like, "Oh, let me take that." So I took her shopping, and then she got her keys, and then she unlocked the car, which was in like the disabled thing. And I was like, "Oh, let me put this in for you." And I get like over the top friendly, and you could see this element of surprise. I got a staffy. I was in like, you know, a t-shirt and joggers, just finished the gym, got pump on, and I got this staffy outside. So it's like proper stereotype, you know, tattooed, big, roided dude with a staffy. And then I'm like, yeah, and I'm like, "Oh, love," and then I'm like, "Oh, let me help you." And you could see like I was like, "Oh," like completely. At first she was like, "Oh no, I don't want your help," and then she's like, "Oh yeah, put my shopping in the car. Do you want to come home and cook me dinner then?" So it's like, yeah, I like that. I like it because it breaks her perception. So like next time there's someone that looks like me, she's like, "Oh, I'm not gonna have the same thing," and then they'll probably mug her, and then she'll go back to her old ways.
Yeah, one ruins it for everyone.
Yeah. What about you?
Do you know what? I've been trying to think about this, and I'm not sure. I always try and ask people what do you think about me? Like I sent messages across, didn't I?
Yeah.
To all my friends a few months ago, because I was like, nearly a year ago now actually, because I was going through a bit of a thing. I was like, I'm still not quite sure who I am and what other people perceive me as. But I think, I don't know, it's hard. I think some people think that I'm always positive and I'm always happy, maybe. But sometimes it's not that I put on a front, but sometimes I just love my own space and just love to be left alone and love to just go into my own little world. And I'm in there for about 5-10 minutes, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm fine now.
Yeah.
I'm good. I just needed that 5-10 minutes to myself, and I'm good." So I'm not always. I think people might see me as always positive, always happy, but I do have moments where I'm just like, "Oh, fuck, I can't be asked to do this."
Yeah, like we all do.
Yeah, I think we all do.
Yeah.
So that's if anyone has any preconceived conceptions of me, comment below because I'm keen to know. But yeah, I think that's mine.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, cool.
Cool. So
Thanks,
get some
guys.
food.
Yeah, thanks. See you in the next one.
Cheers, guys.